thank you all for being here. Some of you were here last time, some of you are new. Either way, we're very happy to have you. We're working on revising temporarily, and we say temporarily, although temporarily is going to feel like forever and a day. But we say temporarily because we're working to move in the direction of competency-based training and then retraining our faculty on how to actually implement the competency-based training. But that's going to take us some time because we're already finding that there are challenges agreeing to a definition of competency-based training and what exactly that is and what it would look like. Because as you know, we have over, I think it's 23. I haven't counted recently, but we have many member organizations all around the globe with different ideas about a lot of things. And competency-based training is one of those, I'll say, exciting topics that everybody has an opinion about. And we want to try to harmonize those opinions so that we can get buy-in from all of our member organizations. And that's going to take some time. So rather than to continue with its certification process the way it is now, we wanted to create an interim policy that people could get behind in the meantime while we're waiting to get the competency one accomplished. So last time we met, we went through the first 5 items on the list, and I've asked Denise to send me the results of that. So I'm hoping that I'll get that before our meeting is over so that I can show it to you. But if not, I'll send it out in an email to all of the faculty so you can see what the outcome of the SurveyMonkey was. And now we're going to go forward to see how many of these we can tackle today. One of the first things, are we ready to go forward, or do you need more introduction than that? We're ready? Okay. All right, great. The first one is we want to, in the original policy, it says that the minimum age of attendance for training is 21 years old. And we believe that that's a United States number, and it came from Glasser's attorney, who suggested that if we're teaching reality therapy and choice theory to kids under the legal age of majority, that parents may have something to say about that and may complain. And Glasser didn't want any kind of lawsuits. I don't know that for certain, but I believe that that's the reason behind the 21-year age mark. So what we want to do is saying that anybody can take the training, but any interested person under the legal age of adulthood in that country needs to have signed parental permission, which just seems to be good practice anyway. So whatever the age of majority is in your country, if you want to teach to younger people, you just need a parent's signature. So that is the proposal, but you may, in your breakout rooms, you may say, no, we want to keep it at 21, or you might say, no, we want to make it 16 without parental permission. And yes, Vicki, I know that it's 18 in the United States.
Oh, it is. That's what I was asking.
It is 18, okay. But for some reason, this policy always said 21. I think it might have been just for good measure, or maybe if you can't drink until you're 21, maybe that's what they were thinking. I don't know, because in the United States, it's so funny. You can join the armed services and risk your life for your country, but you can't drink alcohol until you're 21. You can join the service at 18, but you cannot drink alcohol till 21. We have some crazy ideas in the United States, in my opinion. So, are there any questions about that particular topic? I'd like to break you into small groups. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I can put you in groups of 4, and you can discuss this. I'll give you about, does 10 minutes seem like long enough to talk about this topic? I'll give you 10 minutes. And then I'll give you a 1-minute warning. You'll see it in writing at the top. If you miss it, you're going to automatically be beamed back after 60 seconds from the receipt of that warning. I feel like the Starship Enterprise, but I'll bring you back. Hey, Vicky.
Yeah, our group decided to come back because we had our conversation. So
Okay, great. Are you in agreement? Oh, Sonia, you're sideways.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yes.
I'm like, are you
Maureen,
in agreement?
do you want to speak for us, Maureen?
Yeah, we were in agreement, the age of majority for our own country.
Do we want to hold off on the discussion till everyone comes back in, Kim?
Well, of course, we'll repeat it. I was just, it was
You're
like
just-
a cliffhanger for me. I needed to know what they
Curious.
talked about.
Curiosity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We only have less than a minute before everybody else. Well, before I send the thing.
Maureen, it's very good to see you.
You too. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has.
Well, I've seen you on other calls, but we haven't had a chance to chat. I guess
Yes.
that's yeah.
And Sonia, always nice to have you on board too.
Yeah, thank you for being with us, Pat. You're
Yeah.
always helping us having a great meeting. So
Oh.
thank you for being with us always.
No, thank you. It's just really my pleasure.
All right, I sent the message. They have 60 seconds.
2 seconds.
I love the external control.
Well, I always say, when I'm teaching internal control, I always say we can't get along without external control. We need it. Just how we use it, right?
Well, yeah,
Well,
we have
yeah,
external control and then we decide.
Yeah.
What we're gonna do in response to it, right? Tantrum or whatever it is.
That's always my go-to behavior.
Hi
It's so
again.
satisfying.
All right, so let me know when everybody's on board here.
We don't have everybody back yet, almost. They're just using their time.
So Kim, if they're under that consent age, we have a parental consent, correct?
That's
Yeah.
what we're proposing.
Oh, but we don't
have it.
that now.
No, I think what the policy says now is no one under 21 can take our training. And I know that there's places that completely disregard that. Which, we're not trying to micromanage that. We just want to cover ourselves so no one can anybody can sue us for anything, but they won't win. So we want to make sure that we have a policy that takes care of our legal obligations. So if we say, if we have a policy that says you must get parental consent for people under the age of majority in your country, and you don't do that, well, then if we get sued, we say, hey, this is our policy. We had a member organization that wasn't following our policy. That, that's not, we just want to protect people. That's all. And then we're not going to micromanage and be looking around and saying, are you doing this? What we asked. It's just going to be in the policies. And then each MO would develop their own consent form, because in your country, you might need a different kind of consent than you do somewhere else. What works in the United States might not work in Singapore, may not work in Iran. So I would think that each member organization would develop their own. Okay, so
Are all the groups are back now? So shall I move forward, Kim?
please.
Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to hear from a representative from each group about what you had talked about. And so really this is just a time for you to report, and we'll go through, and then if there's any further discussion, then Kim will talk about that. Otherwise, we're going to move into the next area. Okay, so Claire, I see you have your hand up, and so why don't we go to you, and then whatever group you were in, that can report for that group about your discussion. So Claire, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I want to, when you say training, are you refer specifically to the basic training? Because there will be people.
Oops, you're muted, Claire, so unmute.
Sorry. I think that you just refer to basic training. But if I do training with choice theory for parents, I may take it for 2 or 3 days. Or I train it for students. And they will tell you that, oh, I'm doing choice theory. So that doesn't apply. Or if it's a
Right.
group of parents who wants to train, just get basic training, or parents will come to me. Or they say, I send my daughter to you because they should learn choice theory. So that doesn't apply.
Right. If this whole policy that we're talking about is for the certification policy
Okay.
training. So basic practicum, advanced practicum and certification. That's what we're talking about. And I would think that if a parent sends a child to you, that's pretty much their consent. They're sending them to you.
Okay.
Already.
Mm.
Yeah.
So let's go
yeah.
to Claire. Let's whoever your group, so whoever you were with, who would like to report on your discussion from that group? So who was in the group with Claire? Okay, who would like to report? What was your decision and your discussion in that group? Claire, do you want us tell us what you?
Yeah,
what you
we
talked about?
agree that it should be at the adult age of the country, whichever culture it is. Yeah, 21. Even though I think 21 is a bit too young to be a counselor. Yeah, I used to think of it, and I actually told my participants previously, by the time they are certified, it's 25. I remember a long time ago when I was in a training in US, I thought the figure was 25 by the time they are certified. So I actually told people that by the time they are certified, they are 25 years old. Yeah.
By the time they're
because-
certified, 25. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you,
that's what
Claire.
I told them. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, anything to add from Claire's summary from your group? That's
So
good.
maybe
Oh,
I can like to ask a question to Kim is that when we talk about we're going to have a competency model, that based on that premise is that our current certification is not on a competency model. And what I do understand is that this certification does not certify anyone to be a counselor, because the
That's right.
requirement of counseling is according to each national regulations. If they have. So I mean,
I
on the legal
disagree.
aspect,
I disagree with you that our certification is not a competency level. I focus on competency a lot, all the time, for them to be certified. Even from basic training to go to advanced training, I follow the list of competency from WGI very closely. It is in their manual, and they have to look at it, and they have to do it in their basic practicum and advanced practicum until they meet the competency in the checklist. So I don't agree with you, it's not competency level.
No,
Because I do
and
it all the time.
yeah, Claire,
I disagree. I feel
mean,
offended
I
if you
don't-
say it's not competency level, because I worked so hard to reach for them to reach competency level. So
Well,
I
please-
don't agree. with
please,
you.
Claire.
I do, yeah.
let me just
Claire,
say,
I do
don't feel offended.
Yeah,
We-
I feel
we're-
offended that from Singapore person who say it's not competency level.
Well,
I
Our
worked so
policies-
hard for that.
our policies are not written for it to be competency based.
Yeah.
So when I was before Linda Harshman passed away, one of the things she said is because, like Stephen said, we are not certifying people to be counselors
No, I
as
agree
long
with
as
that.
they sit
Yeah.
through the training and are there for the number of hours that the training is supposed to be, they'll get their certificate. And then we made an attempt at WGI to make the training competency-based, and we listed the competencies, but we never changed the policy to say that you must follow the competencies. So some people like you, Claire, are doing that, and I'm grateful that you're doing that. That's wonderful. But our policies aren't written for it to be that way. And that's what I'm talking about. There are some people who do that. I know Farida, she's on this call, she does competencies every single time, but not everybody does. So I'm sorry, Stephen, go ahead. You can finish.
Yeah. So from my understanding of education, there's an international standard on education and competent or organization that's been certified as competent for education. In Singapore is by either by the ISO standard. I can send you all the ISO standard, but please don't send them out because they need to be purchased. According to ISO 9001, no, I don't think that I can send out because there's a name to it. But for the training or education ISO standard, I can send that. I can share that with you all. Right. So different countries has got their own standard of competency. So I mean, for Kim, the policy, because we are talking about the legal aspect of it in terms of what William says of it all. So I do law myself, but my law is in food and beverage law and in quality law for drugs. So from my understanding, but we will need to have a lawyer in every single country according to their local registration to say that what is competency or not, what is not competency. But as much as I can understand, sharing the course and stating that this is not a counseling training, but a choice theory training to understand William Glasell's work has really resolved us from the legal implication that we are training anyone to be a counselor.
But
The
we never
aspect
said
of
that.
what I understand, but I believe that is not. I'm speaking in legal terms. Maybe that's why I need to explain because these are all legal languages. It is not competency. That means in any organization or in when we get sued, we will never say that we have certified the person to be a counselor. And there's no way for us to certify anyone to be a counselor in any country because they have got local registration for that. That really depends on each other, on the
But
country
it's
itself.
stated very clearly in WGI policy that training in CTRT does not make you a counselor right from the beginning in the 1990s. So
Yeah.
to me,
So
that
what
is
I'm saying-
never disputed. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm just speaking in terms of in legal terms. That doesn't certify competency. That means
what
you
you're
won't get
saying,
so. But I do understand.
I just wanted to
Kim.
clarify.
But
So you're
Mhm.
saying that internationally, there's a definition of competency-based training. That if we say we're
There is-
competency-based, we have to follow those guidelines.
Okay, so there are, in terms of competency, there are two standards. So there are basically three standards. The first standard will be the local national legislation standard. That means in Singapore, it's been upheld by Ministry of Education. They dictate the level of competency. There is also an agency level of competency to which, for example, I was volunteering in Singapore Red Cross. The first aid standards is according to Singapore Red Cross. So that goes under the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent. So it dictates the standard of what competency is in first aid training. There is also another area of competency that we are talking about, which is the ISO standard, the international standard. So different standard or certification body in Singapore, it will be MOE, or basically National Institute of Education. In the Red Cross, for example, the certification body will be the Red Cross. And in other organizations, the certification body will be the organization. So when we talk about competency based, it really depends on who is the certifying body to which is recognized. So a certifying body, that means, let's say, for example, if I'm certified as a counselor or a doctor in Singapore, when I go to US, that does not mean that US recognize me as a counselor or a doctor. But the international, so it really depends on which country accept the certification or not. So in Singapore, choice theory is not accepted by, choice theory is actually not really very accepted. In Singapore, the counselors in Singapore, actually the Singapore the Singapore government actually accepts CBT. They do not accept choice theory. So even if we have a PhD in choice theory, Singapore will not accept choice theory. So that is how it actually goes. So if we as William Glasser Institute, we can certify to say that we certify people according to our standard, but that is only according to our standard. But other agencies, other government, do they accept our standard? That is another question altogether.
I got you. So what I think we're talking about, although again, that hasn't been determined, is that WGI will determine the competencies. So it will be organizational, and each member organization can take the competencies that we have and improve them if they want. They cannot lessen them. So we've often said, these are our standards. If you want to raise them, great, but you cannot lower them. So Singapore would be able to improve upon them if they want to. And then, of course, your improvements would need to come back to us and we'd say, yes, this is fine. And then I don't know if it's research that we lack, if that's why Singapore doesn't accept it, or if they only are willing to accept one theory.
But I disagree that Singapore doesn't accept it. Because a lot of school counselors come for the training, and the principals and the people there, even MOE people send their counselors to me to be trained. So I don't agree that CBT is not.
I do hear what you say, and they do say what I'm talking about over here. And I have to be very specific, it's in legal terms. So if it's not written in black and white, then it's not, because I'm talking about legal terms and in terms of if you are get sued. So from William Glassier's aspect of it, maybe the legislation at that point in time, it may seem that you're teaching counseling. But what I think from William Glassier at that point in time, I think the most of the concern will be in terms of, is it appropriate to teach to a group of participants of an age to which we deem that is not mature enough.
Yeah, I don't even know whether
Because
there's
if you
legal
talk-
term. I don't know whether
So
there's a
if you
legal
talk
term.
about teaching,
Yeah, because if you are
So
comparing to
can I-
CBT and CTRT, I don't even know in Singapore there's a legal term to accept CBT.
So I think that
Okay, so-
if I can jump in, I think we're talking about
Yes,
two
please.
different things. And so going back to what Kim mentioned, is that what we're looking at here is policy. There are differences between having the policy and competency based across different countries. So just for the sake of time, if it's okay, I'd like to go back to what the question is that's on the table, and take a look at what the other groups think regarding the age limit. And Kim, would you state again what the current policy is? And then we'll go to the next group.
Sure. The current policy is that no one under the age of 21 can take reality therapy training,
Right.
period.
Okay.
Okay.
So another group. So I don't know the group number. So we just did the group that Claire was in. Maureen, go ahead. You want to talk for your group?
Sure. It was very simple in our little group. We agreed that it should be the age of majority and with parental consent under the age of majority.
Okay, thank you. And another group, Amir?
Yeah, I'm reporting group 3 anonymously. We were okay to start between 18 and 21. There were some cultural, differences and issues between countries, of course, and considering the fact that each person, even if gets certified at 19, for example, or 20, he or she still needs to get, the legal, the legal certification and everything else according to their national laws.
Great, thank you so much. Was there one more group?
No, there
Is
were
that
only three.
everyone? Okay, everyone's represented. Okay, Kim, do you have anything to add, or you want to go to the next question?
No, it sounds like everyone agrees. I just want to clarify with Amir, the 18 to 21, if we were to say the legal age of majority in your country, would that satisfy everyone in your group?
Well, in our country, yes, 18 is okay. In India, it was okay. And in Saskatchewan, it was also okay.
Okay, all right, great,
Okay, maybe
thank
can I
you.
also just, yeah, can I maybe just add in because I like to just highlight that when we have the policy covers not only in WGI in US, but also the rest of the world. Usually for multinational company that I work with, a policy statement is usually very generic. For example, the policy statement will be the training needs to meet the minimum requirement as per MO's organization. And then after that, we will have what we call a process document because the policy is a high level document to which we need to follow. And then after that process document or guideline will be every individual country to which then they will say that maybe my country is okay with 18. And then the members organization will fix that 18 and then they will have their document documenting that in it. But a policy, if I was just saying, because when I look at the current policy, if the policy say that, oh, it will be 21 in US, then probably 18 and stuff like that, the policy statement may not be that clear.
Right, right. So to summarize, WGI needs to have a more generic view, and then MOs can clarify what works best in their organization. And that's the direction that we want to go. We want to have these are the minimum requirements that WGI is saying, and then MOs get to decide what works best for them. That's exactly where we're going. So thank you, Stephen. All right. The next one, and this gets into details that won't be that important. This one might be going forward. I'm thinking the time frame isn't so important when we do competency-based training. But the next one is about what should the minimum number be for a group at basic, advanced, or certification. We have said that the minimum number should be 6. That was the old policy. And then we had a revision of our policy where the board a few years back voted that if an instructor wanted to train one person, then they should be able to just train one person. So we're looking to get a sense from you what you think the minimum number should be for a group at basic, advanced, or certification. And I'm just throwing out an possibility of 1 person, 3 people, or 6 as options, and see what you think. Okay, Amir.
1 person is okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna send you to a group so you can hash it out,
Okay.
and then we'll
Okay.
come back.
Sorry,
I thought you
before
had a
we
question.
break up, can I answer? Yeah, because when we talk about number of hours, are we talking about the competency?
No, because hours will be irrelevant
no.
once we have a competency-based
Yeah,
training program. But right now, we don't have that. So we do have hours, and we will be talking about that a little bit later. But right now, we're talking about the number of people that can constitute a basic intensive training or an advanced intensive training or a certification. We used to say 6, it went down to 1. So some people have questioned that. How can you do a basic training with 1 person? So we're putting it back to instructors to get your opinions and see what you think. So I'll set you back with groups. Hopefully I'm going to reconfigure the groups so you'll be with different people this time.
And are we thinking maybe 5 minutes would be enough for this discussion, or how long?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think 5 minutes will be enough. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
all right, and people are on their way back in.
Was 5 minutes enough?
Yeah, good.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. And did all of you get an opportunity to vote on the SurveyMonkey survey? I should ask when everybody gets back. Okay, everybody's back. I was just asking if all of you had the opportunity to vote on the SurveyMonkey that we set up for the first week or the first month that we talked about training. Everybody got a chance to do that? Because the link is still in the email for this meeting, if you saw the reminder for this meeting at the top, there was also a link for the survey. So if you didn't get a chance to do that, you can. All right, Pat, take it
Okay,
away.
so this should probably be pretty quick because we're just looking for a number or a thought about numbers. So let's go to group one. Whoever was in group one, would like to speak for your group.
That's Amir, Anne-Marie, Claire, and you, Pat, but you didn't go. So Amir, Anne-Marie, and Claire were by themselves.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. We thought that a training for one person, there may be special circumstances where that may be a good option, so that not to limit that. So one with a recommended, though, maybe minimum of 3 to 6, like somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But that one could be accepted.
Okay, thank you. Group two. I know you never know which group number.
Dr.
you're in,
Vina,
right?
Stephen, Vicky, and Zara. They're the group 2.
We had a variety of answers. Stephen, do you want to speak for us?
Okay, so I think in terms of getting numbers, there must be a rationale or justification behind. So we look at the whole CTRT curriculum, and the role play is one of the most important. In the role play, there are 3 roles: the counselor, counselee, and the facilitator. So I would say that if the trainer take out one of the role, minimally there must be 2 persons. But if we can change the process, then probably 1 person will do, because I do not know how we do it. But at the current moment, with the current process, there should be at least 2 so that the role play can proceed. And also the other thing that we talk about is that we don't have statistics, because you see internationally, people who are researchers in education will talk about what is the best classroom size. We don't have that statistic. We do not do a research on that. But if we look at the minimum requirement, I would say that 2 participants. And then, of course, there is a maximum requirement that will be dictated by what is the level of quality every trainer wants to do. In Singapore, most of the trainers do it for profit, but most of them go beyond. Because if I were to be somebody who is just purely out for profit, I will never run a course with just 1 person, because it takes up a lot of my time. The return of investment is very low. So ultimately, until the competency model is there, the minimum to run a successful course with the current curriculum will be 2. And then how many people that we want in the future, that will be really based on the competency model. Is there
Right,
any
okay.
others from our group who want to add in?
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think our group had a consensus. We had our good opinions and ideas.
We're not looking for consensus
Yeah.
here. I should have said that in the beginning. That's not the goal. If it were, we'd never get through anything on the list. So just to speak to what you said, Stephen, if I could, the people who advocated for 1 person, when we made the change, what was said but not written into policy is that for role plays they would invite some other certified people or practicum supervisors to come in to be able to have that 3 people for role
Yeah.
plays. So if we do that, I think maybe that should be written into the policy as well, so that there are at least 3 people to play through the 3 different roles in role play. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I
the last
think
group.
totally agree.
Okay, so the last group,
That's Edmund, Farida, Maureen, and Sonia.
Edmund, why didn't you speak up?
All right. I shared in the group that it's not a training, but I have a supervisee that followed me long enough to pick up the language, the way of asking certain questions and stuff like that. I think if we are moving towards a competency-based model, that is an example of how a 1-person training can be. But personally, I still, or rather the group consensus is still that we still prefer in a group, so that there's a rich discussion. I think nothing can replace that rich discussion between participants. Yeah. Did I miss out anything? Yeah.
No, Edmund. Great.
Did your
Yeah.
group settle on a number?
We didn't settle a number, but we still support at least a group. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank
Okay.
you. Welcome, Denzel. I want everyone to know Denzel is not late on purpose. He was in our other linked rooms waiting to be let in, and that didn't happen. So I'm glad he reached out and I was able to get him the link. But yeah, Denise and I apparently both set up rooms, and in the first email was my link, and in the second email was her link. So hence the confusion. Okay, so the next thing that we're looking at, and this is about practicum. Okay, so in the current policy, practicum is set to be 30 hours, with at least 12 of those hours being face-to-face with the practicum supervisor. And face-to-face could be on Zoom. It's just in real time with the practicum supervisor. Now, we have Canada is our overachieving group, I would say, because they require 30 hours of practicum to be with their practicum supervisor. So when we say a minimum of 30 hours in Canada, they're getting instruction and interaction in real time for that entire 30 hours. I don't know too many practicum supervisors who are only doing 12 hours, but there may be some who do, because that's the policy. It has to be a minimum of 12 hours. There are some who are advocating for 18 hours. I know myself, I always do 18 hours. I don't think 12 is enough. And of course, when we switch to competency-based training, this will be a moot discussion. So this is not the most critical, but it's something we want something that we can live with in the interim. Because if someone asks me, how long do I think it's going to take to get competency-based training policy going? Based on past history, I would guess that it's going to be I'm thinking 5 years. That's what I'm thinking, to be fair. I don't think it'll happen sooner than that, but it's just my opinion. So I'm going to put you back in rooms. Do you think was 5 minutes enough the last time? Can I give you 5 minutes to talk about hours? And then again, we're not looking for consensus. We just want to hear what everyone says. 12, 18, 30, and maybe you might have something in between. Maureen.
Actually, Kim, in Canada, the minimum number of hours is 18, but we all pretty much do 30, sometimes 40. I just wanted to clarify that.
Sometimes 40. You are the overachievers. It's so interesting, because I did it was it was a faculty program for endorsing practicum supervisors, and I taught that with Ellen Jelinet from Canada. And Ellen and I were working with a group of people who were about 50-50, Canadians and from the United States. And I can tell you it was a little embarrassing to be from the United States, because it was so obvious that the Canadian participants were better prepared. And I think they were better prepared because they had all of this time with their practicum supervisors. So, 30 or 40 hours compared to 12 hours would make a big difference. And that's twice, because you have a basic practicum. Yeah. So really you're talking about 60 to 80 hours compared with 24. So we'd like to have some consistency across the world in the interim while we're moving towards competency-based. So 5 minutes, and I'll bring you back. You'll get the notice in 4. Okay. See you soon. Okay. We still have one group.
That's I love yellow.
It looks fabulous on you.
Yeah. I love my yellow. Okay.
It looks good.
Thanks, dear.
I think if you were in the room with only 2 people, Ali, what kept dropping off, I think his internet is giving him fits, so he wasn't able to be there.
Trouble.
Yeah, we're still waiting for the last group. So there was one room that had 5 people, only one room with 2.
Oh, that's
wow.
Yeah, they, Zoom does it the best it can, but that's it.
At the end of the day, it's only a machine, right?
Right. It doesn't really know who's struggling and having internet troubles. Okay. Over to
All
you,
right.
Pat.
So everybody's back. So let's Kim tell us again what we are discussing.
We're looking at how many hours practicum should be face-to-face.
All right.
What is your thought?
So, yeah, so we want to kind of keep that as our guiding conversation. So, group 1.
That was the group with 5 people. So you just came back, group 1.
Okay. So, does somebody from group 1 want to present a summarization of what you talked about?
Let me share from group 1 then. I think
Thank
we
you,
talk
Edmund.
about what's the purpose of the hours, all right? And why do we need to look at the hours? First of all, we also talk about are we going to police the hours then? If we set a minimum, that means we have to ensure that everybody follows it. We can enforce a minimum hours, but we cannot enforce a maximum hours. We cannot say that you have to give a maximum hours of X numbers, right? The other things that we talk about is that what's the point of having all these interim models, all right? If the purpose is to ensure that our training is as good as other modalities, then why not just straight away focus on the competency model? That would then make this interim model not necessarily, if we can straight away focus on the competency model and quickly come up with the competency model, then we don't have to discuss about all these, how many hours do we have, how many people do we have, and things like that. Yeah. That's our thoughts from the group. If I miss out anything, the rest can please have to join in. Yeah.
Did you come up with any consensus about a basic number of hours? No. Okay.
No, we don't. Yeah.
That's okay. That's okay. It's just a discussion. All right, group 2.
Yep.
Group 2 is the group with 3 people or 4 people, not the group of 2. So if you had 3 or 4 people, you're group 2.
All right. So someone from group
Farida,
2.
is that our
Yeah,
group?
that's Claire. Yeah,
Okay.
that was Claire, Sonia, Zara, and myself.
Okay.
We did share each of our experiences whilst teaching. And of course, it all depends on the competency of the participant. So we agreed it should be between 18 to 22. Okay. We didn't give a
Okay.
fixed number, but 18 to
Yeah.
22. On
Okay.
a personal basis, 18 was too little. Claire also thought 22 was good. And Zara brought up an excellent point. She said when they declared that there would be so many hours for that much money, all right, the trainer would then ask for more if it went beyond that. Okay. But we didn't talk more about that. Okay.
Yeah, but
We just decided let's come up with the hours. But it
but-
was good information.
Thank you very much, Farida.
no,
Claire, did
but
you have
can
something
I
you wanted
add
to-
something? Yeah, but Farida, we also say that the number
Sure,
of
Claire.
hours is based on the competency of the group. Sometimes we can even go more hours, like advanced
to 40.
practicum 30 hours, up to 40 hours.
Yeah.
We have experience
40.
getting up to 40 hours for them to reach competency. So it's
Okay.
not, even though it's recommended, if you want to base on competency level, we cannot just stick to the recommended.
That's right.
Okay.
And it
Thank
also
you.
depends on the size of the group.
Yep. Thank you. All right. And then
Size
the
of the
group,
group.
yeah, thank you. And the last group with what, 2 people in there?
Yeah, Amir's group.
Wiki,
Okay.
yeah, it was Wiki and Mary and me. Wiki, please.
Hmm. Where's Vicky?
Okay, so Vicky, you're
Vicky?
going to talk to the group?
I think Amir is.
Okay, okay. So please add if anything is missed. We thought that the minimum hours should be something between 24 to 30, and that's the minimum thing to to guarantee that the quality and the competency level at the practical level. So this was the the range we agreed on.
I'm sorry, did you say 4? The number 4?
24.
Oh,
24.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
That makes a big
24.
difference.
Yeah, yeah, sure. 24 to 30 hours.
Okay.
We
All
were
right.
also trying to decide if it meant the actual basic intensive week, the advanced intensive week. Is it what goes in between the two of those? What exactly were we talking about for the hours?
Yeah, it's the it's the hours that the practicum supervisor spends face to face with
Face-to-face.
the person or the group that they're moving from basic intensive to advanced intensive, or from advanced intensive to certification.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Kim, you want to move to the next?
Well, yeah, we only have 10 minutes left, so let's see if we can do it in 5 minutes and then come back and process. It's this is kind of a big thing. It may take more than 5 minutes. We may have to continue it next time. But we currently have a policy that the first day of a basic intensive training can be open to the public. And why that became a policy was there were a couple of reasons. A lot of times, say, an organization will hire you to come in and do a basic training, and they want all of their people to be exposed to the information in the first day, and then a select number up to 16 will continue with the basic training. It also was done that way because many organizations who set up their basic training would hire William Glasser to come in and do the first day. And so everybody would get a day with Glasser, and then they would have 3 more days for their basic intensive training. So we're wondering if that should still be available. And maybe you could talk a minute about what that might look like. So if that's okay, I'll send you all into breakout rooms and I'll keep track for 5 minutes.
I mean, the idea was very interesting. We were really excited. Oh, what a chance. It's an opportunity for, for the people to get exposed to the theory. So we were okay with that.
Okay. Excellent. There was some pushback on that when we recreated when we sent out the draft policy. There was some people who didn't think it was appropriate because we don't have Dr. Glasser anymore. So I know that I've done it just for a school district. So the whole school I did a PD day for the whole school. And then I completed the training with 16 of the people who were going to go on.
Yeah.
I thought that was a good model.
Yeah.
Of course,
What do we have here, Kim? Is this all that have the other people in this meeting?
no, they came back early. The other people
Oh,
have
okay.
8 seconds left and they'll be back with us.
Okay.
6, 5,
Drum
4,
roll.
3, 2.
But I don't see how you can be against it, because you always have a choice. If you don't like it, then you don't do it. See? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sir, what a
Yeah.
great.
I don't see how you can. I don't see how you can go against it. Yeah.
Well, you might hear some reasons now, maybe. Who knows? Go ahead, Pat. We'll see if we can wrap this up.
Yeah,
We have 2
okay,
minutes.
so
We
we've
may go a
already
couple
heard
minutes over.
from one group, and that's going to be summarized also in our online follow-up. So let's take one
First
of the
group
next.
was Ali, Denzel, Farida, and Stephen.
Okay, so someone from that group want to report, please?
Okay, Denzel, can I share what you have said?
Yeah, go ahead, Steven.
Okay. So in our group, it's really a big topic, but we don't have enough time. But I think what Denzel is trying to share, it really depends, because ultimately it still goes back to the competency. It really depends on the level of information that we are sharing. So if it's a high level information, then we can have a bigger group. But if it goes into more specific training, then probably a bigger group may not be will not be okay. So that's what the group has. But on top of that, what I have to share is that usually internationally there's a model called Donald Kirkpatrick evaluation model for training. It goes on 4 levels. So the very first level is talking about information, which what Denzel has talked about high level information, to which if you are just giving information for them for their awareness and knowledge, then for awareness and information, then even 200 person in university conference hall is enough. And then the second level of Donald Kirkpatrick, you are talking about understanding. It's not just I'm aware, I understand. That goes according to our brain chart also. First, we have awareness, then we have an understanding, and then we need to have lesser people. And then, of course, when we go into the valuing filter, we talk about on the job training, like we are talking about role play, it goes, the number of people going to be lesser. So if we go, because ultimately it still links back to quality, because Donald Kirkpatrick, fourth level is mastery. That means you become the SME, you teach other people. So ultimately we still talk about in a restaurant, how good a service do you want? Is it a waiter to 4 tables or waiter to 6 tables? So in the first day, we can have as many as 200%. And what Denzel is trying to say is that if the information is just for information awareness, then it really doesn't matter. But if we go to a second level, second stage, third stage, or fourth stage of training, which is from information to understanding, from understanding to experiential, to be able to execute the role play, then the participant to the trainer ratio should be there. Then if this is not a competency model, then the number of hours really doesn't matter.
Okay, thank you.
That
And,
makes
Just
sense.
add over
Yeah.
here, may I just add over here, we also brought in the point of if the training is for 3 days only, and the first day goes in for information giving, what happens to the other 2 days? Is that enough for the basic intensive week? We have to think about that because some countries do 3 days. Some of us do 4 days. Some of us even do 5 days. Okay. So that also comes into the picture.
so thank you very much for that. I think what I'm hearing is the importance of intention in whatever you're choosing to do. And in the first group that spoke before you came back on, the talk was you can always make that the policy that it's possibility to do that in the first day, and you can choose not to do it. So that's the other piece of it. So intention kind of guides you. All right, so there's another group that wants to have input.
Dr. Veena, Edmund, and Zara.
All right, who's going to speak for that group?
We also had similar thoughts, like we could have an orientation program or an awareness program, and then see how it goes, how convinced people are to take up the basic intensive week, so that if we have an orientation or awareness programs, it will help us to reach to more participants. That's what we also discussed in our group.
Okay, thank you. And is there another group still, Kim?
Yes, but I'd like to say just one thing in the interim. It just occurred to me. We do have an orientation program, if you will, if we think about the first day as a take charge of your life training.
Yes. Yeah.
And then we dive in deeper with the other 3 days. That makes some sense to me. Just a thought based on what your comment was, Veena. Thank you for that. The last group, Amir, Anne-Marie, Claire, and Maureen.
Before the other groups is, can I just pitch in and say one more thing? Like if we could approach colleges wherein they have post-graduation students and there are add-on courses in India. So if we could target those people, so if we could take up this orientation program to those students, it would be helpful. And also we could ask other peoples to enroll in our CTRT programs. That would be more useful.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, so that other group, we talked a little bit before everyone joined us. That was with Amir and some other people, right, Kim? So is there anything to add from that group?
I don't think so.
Okay, we summarized that already, right? That was,
Yeah.
Okay. All right, then, Kim, I think that wraps us up for this segment. And for this
We
meeting.
never accomplish as much as I hope. I'm such an eternal optimist.
Denzel has his hand up.
Oh, Denzel.
Yeah, so I think for us, the caveat, Kim, was it depends on how the training is designed as well, in terms of what goes into that first day. And as Stephen rightfully said, in terms of what kind of information comes through. So I think that's something to bear in mind as well. And as Farida said, the difference between the 3 and the 4 day training as well. So yeah.
I think those are all great considerations. The note that I made is when we put this in the Survey Monkey is to leave a comment section so people can say their concerns about what that means. And I'll make sure that that's involved in there. And just to give you some, oh, Amir.
Can I add something? Yeah. I mean, this kind of situation, well, beforehand, we know it's a school, it's an organization. We know how many days are the training are going to be and the number of people. So we can, I mean, the logistics is very important, and we can have assistance with us. I mean, the instructor can go with, 2-3 assistants, well, if needed, in order to cover that, the first day training. So we saw this as an opportunity for the people are, participating in kind of training. And maybe that's going to, be a lead for them, and they may think that this is going to be something that they love to continue and learn in next, opportunities.
Right. It's like almost like a sales opportunity to expose them to the ideas and get them interested. So that first day should be very exciting and relevant and speak to the hearts and minds of the people who are there. I agree with that 100%. And just so you know, our next item, which we're not going to do today, but just to be thinking about, is should basic and advanced intensive ever be combined together? Because there are some there are some people who want to do that, and there's some people who are vehemently opposed to that. So I don't know what you're saying, Denzel, but you have some reaction over there. You are muted though, so I don't know if you wanted us to hear you or just see the facial expression. But yeah, and
Just the
Fareed,
expression.
okay, so
Hi.
I'm glad we didn't end with that one, because that would be something that would take much longer. Okay, Stephen, I see your hand.
Yeah. So Kim, I just have got an area of concern that I'd like to highlight, because we are moving towards the competency model, and at the moment, I do not know what is the competency model. So at the current moment when we're doing interim, I was just thinking, small minute changes will be appropriate, so that when we have the competency model, it's a lot easier to move over. But if we are going to have drastic change or big change, then to move over to the final competency model, we may have to mitigate a lot of differences, or basically negotiate a lot of differences. So this is just my area of concern, because we are moving towards 2 different stages.
Say the last thing you said. I didn't catch it.
Okay, so between the 2 different stages now, which is the interim, and there is a final competency model. If the interim model and the final competency model has got a big difference,
Right.
we will have to spend a lot more time in terms of negotiating the difference. Because from corporation that I work with, which is MMC, if it's small technical stuff, it will be a lot easier. But if you're dealing with people's sentiment, like for example, 12 hours, 18 hours, and involve emotion, change management in this aspect is going to be very difficult. So I was wondering, during the interim model, I would propose or suggest that not too drastic a change will be made, or if there is a drastic change, then the principle of why we are doing it would be aligned with the final competency model. So at least we are moving in one direction.
That makes
That
great
is why.
sense. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. That is brilliant. So don't try to do too many changes now that are big changes, so that we won't have so much heavy lifting to do when it's time to transfer to the competency-based model. That's great. Thank you. Okay, so I want to once again thank you all for your giving us your hour and a half time today, hour and a half and 10 minutes. And I look forward to the next time. I think we are going to attempt to do this every month until we get it finished. And so a Survey Monkey will go out again about the topics that we covered today. And I'll have the results of the first Survey Monkey for when we meet again, and probably in the interim, I'll send that out to you all. So thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you again next month.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Thank you.
Yep,
Bye,
thank
everyone.
It was
you.
nice seeing
Take
you all.
care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.
You're
Bye.
welcome. Bye. So we have some work to do today. We got through 3 things with the morning group. So we're just going to do 3 things with you guys so we can keep both groups in the same, on the same pace. And I'm looking for that. I hope I didn't. I don't think that I would have closed it. I don't close anything ever.
Hi, Marty.
Hello.
I may have closed it. So I'm going to go back in my email and find it again. So I don't think that every one of you was still here, was here last month. So I just want to mention, what we did last time. And I'm still looking, sorry. What we did last time, oh, guess what? I have it in my phone. That I don't have at the moment. So I remember we did 3 things, and I remember, hold on 1 minute. What is this?
5.
Where was it?
It fell down the back street in the bag
Fine.
that I have the plastic. to
Okay.
be-
All right, I found my phone.
And Kim, I just forwarded the email to you also. That you
With the
sent-
link
With the link.
to the
for the
question.
questions.
Okay, thank you. It's good to have it. Good to have a team. Where did you send it, Pat?
To your Gmail.
Okay, thank you. Hmm,
It was in my car, which I had served.
Are you seeing it?
got it. Yep, I got it.
A bag full of, a plastic bag full of
Okay,
this bag,
so we talked about
typo. And that was like, to put a phone on the console when I started out.
three
Somebody
things.
has to
We
mute.
talked about what the minimum length, no, we did that last time. We talked about, the first thing was that the current policy says that no one under 18 can take a basic intensive training or go through the certification process. And just so you know, I believe that was put into place because Dr. Glasser was concerned about lawsuits. And here in the United States, even though our age of legal majority is 18, they said nobody under 21 can take the training. Marty might have more historical information about that, but I think it was about being sued by parents who we taught this radical information to, and the parents weren't happy about it. So we decided that we wanted to propose in the new policy that we don't train anyone under the legal age of majority in your area without a consent from the parents. And that's just for certification, right? If you're teaching a choice theory training in school and it doesn't lead to certification, that's a different thing. But if you're doing the certification process with people who are not a legal adult in your area, we're suggesting maybe that we make the change from 21 to a generic, whatever the legal adulthood is in your country. And then each MO would develop their own consent form because each area probably needs something different in the consent. And then if you're working with people under the age of adulthood, you just get parental consent. Or do you want to keep it at 21? So that's the first question. If you were not here last month, let me just give you a little bit of background onto how we were doing this. So we wanted to present what the topic was, let you know some of the historical background on that, and then send you into breakout sessions to discuss it, and then come back and let us know what it is your group said. We don't expect your group to come to consensus. That's not the goal. The goal here is just to get everyone's opinion about it and the rationale behind it out so that we can consider it. And then the next step is to set the questions up in SurveyMonkey and to have people vote for them. And then the information from the SurveyMonkey goes back to the training committee, and then we decide what we're going to do with the actual policy. And by the way, the general consensus in SurveyMonkey was not to call it a policy, to call it guidelines. So we may be calling this guidelines, which is, I think, a good move. And that's just the thought. And we will eventually, and I say eventually, I want to say within 5 years, we want to be moving to a competency-based model for training. Now that sounds like a no-brainer because that's what Glasser proposed, that we work from competence, not from time. But if you look at our policy and procedure manual, we have a list of it has to be this many days and this many hours and this much time between this phase and this phase. And we're not really talking about competence. Now, some instructors are following WGI's competence guidelines that we created a few years back. I want to say 6 years, maybe 5 years ago. And that's posted on the WGI website. And some people are checking off those competencies with the people in their training, and that's great. But we don't have universal compliance with that, nor have we done any kind of training on that. And we think as we move into a competency-based model, we're going to need to do some training. Of course, we all know in our heads what competency-based means. We're Glasser people. We've read about it. We know about it. We advocate for it. And yet, because we have 20-some member organizations within WGI, it shouldn't be a big surprise to you that the perception of a competency-based model is very different from person to person, not only just country to country. So the reason I say I think 5 years is because I think it's going to take some time to reach a consensus, a blended general understanding of what we're talking about, and then an agreement on what those competencies actually are. So in the meantime, we wanted to change the cumbersome policy that we had and try to move it into more of an overarching umbrella policy rather than just the policy that was written in the United States way back in 2009. So the current policy and procedures manual is over, it's like 13, 14 years old now. And there were many things in there when we looked at it that we'd like to change. So that's what these conversations are about. And we didn't want to just change it. You can't get through because maybe Denise might have cut it off on the 10th. I'll have her reopen that. I see in the chat. Michelle, thanks for that. I didn't know that you wouldn't be able to go to that. So I'll have Denise reopen that. It should be reopened tomorrow. So if you want to go back in and fill that out. I wanted to have all the information for this meeting so I could share with you all what everybody said, but I think we got less than 20 responses and we have more than 200 faculty. So that's not a very good response. So I rather than just say, oh, well, I said the 10th and you didn't do it, so we're moving on. I don't want to do that. I want to give you an opportunity to weigh in. The first 5 questions were not, they didn't require a lot of conversation. It was either you felt this way or this way or this way, and you got an opportunity to vote. But the 3 that we're going to talk about today has a little bit more substance to them. And I want to break you into small groups. I'm looking to count how many, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I will make 3 groups, and you'll have 3 to 4 people in your group. And when I do that, you are going to discuss each question that we're talking about and what your thoughts are. And then you'll have to choose amongst yourselves who's going to be the reporter and come back and share with us whatever the group was talking about. And then, of course, if your reporter missed a point that you think is important, you'll get a chance to weigh in and add whatever you think. But we're not trying to convince each other that our way is the right way. We're just trying to hear from everybody what they're thinking and why they think that way. We had some really interesting input from our group this morning, and I don't expect any less from this group this afternoon. So the first question is, should we keep the policy the way it is that says no one under 21 can receive basic training, period? Or should we make it the MOs decide what is the age? Well, you know, the age of legal majority in your country, and anything under that who wants to go through certification would need parental permission, and then you would develop a consent form. So that's the first question. Any questions for me before I move you into small groups? I think we gave people about 10 minutes to talk about this particular topic. Any questions before I beam you in?
Are you saying that we're going to talk about one question at a time?
Yeah.
There were 3, so I didn't know if you were going to give the other 2 right now or not.
Yeah. Well, if you want them, I can.
I don't know what the plan was. Whichever way you do it, that's fine with me.
Well, if you want kind of an overview of our tasks for today, I'll let you know what the other 2 are. But I only want you to talk about the first one in your groups. So the second one was about, well, let me go back. Let me not just do it from memory. Let me go back. It was, how many people should constitute a group for basic training? And then how many hours of a 30-hour practicum should be face-to-face with the practicum supervisor? So those are the other 2 questions, and they did require some conversation. Let me say that. It was interesting. So I'm going to change that to 4 groups. And you'll have 3 to 4 in a room, and I'll give you 10 minutes. Hi, everybody. Did you have fun?
Sure.
Yes.
Come back.
Always.
Of course, always, always. Michelle, are you from Australia? Are you Michelle from Australia?
I am.
Are you the one that does some version of marketing in Australia?
No.
All right. You're not the person that I thought you were. I thought there was a Michelle that did marketing a couple of years ago on one of our Zoom symposiums that we had. But it
Maybe Roxanne.
Roxanne, that's who I was thinking of. Okay, I had the mix-ups. Thanks for that,
She's in
Sue.
Queensland way, isn't she? She up Queensland?
Yes, she is. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think everybody's back. I did not introduce, I think you all know who Pat Roby is. She's known to most people. She is our person who reviews people who are moving from basic instructors to senior faculty. That used to be Dr. Glasser who did that, and Dr. Glasser gave that responsibility to Al Katz. And when Al Katz wanted to move on and spend more time with his lovely wife, Susan, he passed that on to Pat. And Pat is the person who does that, other than the people who are in stage 3, who might be doing their own senior faculty approval. But we have asked Pat to be here to moderate a conversation. And she did need to pull our first group back if they started talking about something that wasn't on topic. So she might do that, which I greatly appreciate. And so she's going to facilitate the conversation. So it's all yours, Pat.
All right, thank you. And so with that in mind, would you please repeat the question that we're going to be discussing? And then I'm going to ask each group to have your speaker just give us a summary, and then we'll move through this pretty quickly. or unless we have more conversation, and then we'll go to the next question. So the question under discussion right now, Kim, is
should we leave the policy at no one under the age of 21 can do certification training? Or should we change it to the age of majority in the member organization and under that with parental permission?
okay, so that's what we want to know about. So let's start with, if you know who you are in group number 1, we will
That's
take.
Gary, Liz, Pat, and
That's-
Sue. That's you,
we'll take
Pat. You weren't in that group.
Yeah, Gary here. Member organisation according to their local age of consent, and parent, some sort of parent authorisation if they're under the age of consent.
Great.
Although
Okay.
we did also stipulate there may need to be exceptions to that because there may be kids who are living in independent living.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We'll move on then to group 2.
Okay, that would be Dr. Zamel, Palakamurte, and Michelle.
So our group we were of the agreement that we thought it could be open to someone who was in adolescence, who was early school, who had just left school as well. We thought that was because they were in that environment of being thirsty for knowledge at that time, and that they would take time to progress through the other stages. So if they started that in the basic week, then it would just bring them in earlier, I guess we were saying. And do you have anything else to add, my group?
Well, I have a question. So if we have them under the age of legal majority, are you saying you would want them to have parental consent or not? No parental consent needed.
We didn't discuss that, but I think they would need parental consent.
Okay.
Okay,
Great.
thank you. So now we'll go to group number 3.
Judith, Marty, and Sharon.
And we're all
All
in
my
the
American
US.
people got together.
And,
Except
and
Sue.
we all realize that we have been having people under the age of 21 in basic trainings because they're
La, 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 la.
Who's that?
so we have people in college that are going, we have a student membership for people who have taken a basic training. But Kim can't hear me.
Well, I think it's crazy to have 21 as the legal age when in the United States it's 18.
The United States never had
No.
it at 21. When we set that policy, it was 18.
And we
it's
have
21.
to abide by the WGI policy or get a waiver. And I don't know that we've ever officially done any of that. But our group decided that having 18 or the legal age of majority in the member country, and that younger than 18 or the legal age of majority, a person could go through the training with parental or guardian permission.
Good. Okay, great.
Thank you. And so now the last group.
Christine, John, and Sue.
So, yeah.
So I'm the spokesperson, and yes, we were in consensus that we said that it was up to the member organization, whatever the legal majority age was, with a parental consent if under that majority legal age. And we just all
Okay.
agreed and said that made the most sense to us.
It sounds like we're all in agreement, and I think that the people in our morning session all had the same basic idea that we'll change it to the age majority in the country with parental consent for younger. So I think we should mark this on the calendar, Calico. What do you think? We have everybody in agreement. Like, when does that ever happen?
No, I can't mark it because I think if we just say parental consent, we're going to block out children of great need, young people of great need. I think that is a really rigid thing to say, and I'm not going to vote for it. Sorry.
So to that
Rigid.
point though, Kim, is that my understanding is that these two groups are not making the decision. They're just giving feedback, and you're still going to post it for voting from the general members or the faculty, right?
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course we
I
will.
just-
And what we said actually in the first group was WGI is creating the guidelines. And we would say, based on legal issues, that the guidelines would be the age of majority or parental consent. But if there's a member organization that's not concerned with legal consequences, because there are no big legal consequences. I think you all are pretty aware that the United States is quite a litigious country. We sue people at the drop of a hat here. We don't want lawsuits teaching younger students without parental consent, but if that's not an issue in other countries, then you could lower it. But if the person decides they're going to sue you and they try to sue us, we're going to say, hey, this is our policy, but this MO decided to change the policy. They're applying it differently. So I don't know how this will shake out, but that's a good consideration, Calica, and we'll certainly want you to share that in the SurveyMonkey, and we'll take it from there. The training committee will take it from there.
My question would be, I'm sorry, my question would be, if we do have a young person in need, would there be some kind of social services group that would be able to sign off on that person? On that
Well, I
young
know in
person?
the
Yes,
States we
there would.
would.
So guardian, I think it's important to add parental guardian consent, because that will cover, at least here in the US, it will cover
Yeah.
homeless youth and, yeah.
So we could say legal guardian or parental consent. Yeah,
Or
Sharon.
not necessarily parental consent, it would be, or guardianship consent, right? Would that
Legal
take care of?
guardian or parental consent, right?
Okay.
Parental guardian, and then at least here in the US, if you're 16 or older, you can be
Emancipated.
thank you. If you're an emancipated,
Emancipated minor.
If you're emancipated or parental guardian, and then that covers
Yeah.
the majority.
Okay. All right. Excellent. I'm going to just type that in the chat when you go into your next meeting so that I keep those notes. I would have had them here, but my table collapsed that I usually work on. So
At least you've got your phone back.
Yes, I do. I'm focusing on what I have, not what I don't.
No.
Sharon.
Okay, I just pulled up legal age of majority in the US. It basically is 18, except for a few states that have it 19, one has 21, several have 18 or graduation from high school. That is the way they define age of
Okay.
majority in the US.
It
All
does
right.
not make it easy.
No, and it's different for other MOs. So
I-
we, as WGI, don't want to state something that is specific to the United States. We want to have
Exactly.
something that can be applied in all member organizations as a guideline. And then will absolutely include the rationale for why we have it that way. And then
Mhm.
member organizations can decide how they're gonna do that.
Right, because even if we say age of majority for the US, there's some variance within our country. That's the point I was trying to make. Not that everyone had to go to 18.
No, we'll
Right.
need to pay attention to that then within our own organization.
Well, you just say at the age of consent. I mean, the legal age, and so that takes care of no matter what state you're in.
Just the age of
Right.
majority.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Thank
the
you.
next
Go ahead, the next question.
The
Next.
next topic is the current
Mhm.
policy. Well, let me tell you historically, because it's not the current policy. Originally, I don't know if this is original, but my understanding of the history of the Institute, Marty may know more or differently. We used to say that you had to have at least 6 people to hold a basic training or an advanced training or a certification. A few years back, I don't know exactly when, I want to say it was 5 or 6 years ago. Is that about right, Calca? WGI did a little bit of updating to some of the training policies, and we changed it to one person because there were people on the board who said, hey, if you're a basic instructor, advanced instructor, and you're willing to give up 3 or 4 days and train one person, then you should be able to do that. And the board voted in favor of that. So the current policy says one person is enough to hold a basic or an advanced training. So the question is, do we want to stick with 1? Do we want to go back to 6? Do we want to have 3? Or is there some other consideration? And what do you think about the minimum number of people for that kind of training, the intensive training? Marty.
Can I make a statement? The reason I was on the board at the time that we set all this up at Bill's house. And the reason for the numbers was the fact that Bill thought that teaching these concepts is better in a social environment, in a group setting, as opposed to an individual setting. And so he asked instructors at that time, which is myself, Diane, Jim Montagnus, what would be an ideal group to work with? And that's where we came up with the number 6, and on exception, maybe 5.
Okay, and just some additional information to add for why they changed it, why we changed it to 1, was because there were instructors who consistently had the same person who wanted to go through training, and they kept having to say, I only have one
enough.
person.
Yeah.
Right. And people were getting discouraged and they were dropping off. So that was the other reason. Now, some areas, they don't have that problem. They have plenty of people taking training, but there are other areas in the world where the training numbers have dwindled quite a bit.
Yeah.
So as you do your conversation, just think about that and know that we're looking at guidelines that other member organizations can we don't want you to go below our guidelines and diminish the quality, but you can always go above. So if we say that the number is 3, Australia may say, well, we don't think 3 is enough. We want 6, and you can do 6. But if we say 3, we don't want you to go lower than 3. And then, of course, there was someone in our first training, the morning, who said, well, how are you going to police that? And are you going to be going around to see how many people are in training, and what are you going to do? And of course, we're not a police organization, so that's not going to happen. We're hoping for people who are instructors who want to abide by the guidelines that WGI sets. That's what we're hoping for. So we'll go in small groups and see what you think about that. But the idea is the minimum number of people in a basic, advanced, or certification training.
Are we all back?
Yeah,
Everybody's back.
We are.
All right, so welcome back. And so the question again, Kim?
The question is, what was the question? Give me 1 second.
Number 7. What should the
minimum number for training be?
Minimum number for group training.
Okay, so let's start at group 4 this time. So group 4.
Okay.
Who are
Group
you?
4 was Judith and Liz and Michelle.
All right, who's the reporter?
Judith. Well, I can. I wasn't taking notes, but we had a good conversation, and where Liz and I were, as we thought that what was important is that you have the social interaction, and if you were going to have one person in the training, then the instructor would need to bring people in some way or another via Zoom or somebody in person or whatever in order to provide those interactions. Michelle really made a strong case for 3 people.
Okay, thank you. And just, it's of note that this morning that also came up about bringing somebody in from outside when it comes time to do the role plays and things like that. So, yep, good. All right, let's go to group 3.
It's Dr. Zamel, John, and Sue Berry.
Okay, we had a similar kind of discussion really, and we felt 3 was an ideal number. Well, not an ideal number, but an ideal minimum to get a bit of interaction happening. But we then just at the end, we thought maybe if there was 1, would we get an exception? Would we bring other people in? So right at the end, before we were beamed back, we were about to talk about whether we should have a minimum of 1 with aiming at least 3, or would it be a minimum of 3 and then you would get an exception? But exceptions are difficult to handle. So I guess we felt we were almost clearly decided on 3, and then as time went on, 1 appeared maybe, you know, with guidelines that we encourage interaction, that we bring people in that are already trained or whatever for the training. And also we did focus mainly on the basic training. We didn't feel, I think we agreed that we didn't want just 1 person for advanced or certification training. So that's not cut and dry, but that's what we talked about, unless anyone would like to add something.
If I could share with you about the one time that I taught 1 person in a basic training. I had 7 people signed up, 6 from 1 school. And on the morning, I had 1 person there. I couldn't understand where the other 6 were. I called the school and they said, oh, we decided not to send them. But they didn't tell me that. So the 1 person I had, I'm in Chicago. He had come from Washington, D.C., which is quite a trip on plane. And so I remember clearly calling Linda Harshman and saying, you know, he's here. I don't want to tell him he can't get the training that he came for. Can I do this with 1 person? And she said yes. And we actually did the whole 27 hours, just the 2 of us. And it was, I would say, it was one of the most intense training experiences I've ever had. And he basically said the same thing. It was good for him, but I think that having more people there would certainly have been better and a richer experience. But
yes,
you know, you can't always plan for that.
No, and that could happen easily. Yeah.
Thank you. Let's go to group number 2 now.
Gary and Sharon Carter Jackson.
Okay, that would be us. We kind of talked across the gamut, a number of people, and then talked about experiences we've had and other instructors in more recent time. And Gary has had experiences of teaching distance students that were physically together for the training in this other location. And he always had a practicum supervisor and or possibly someone working on instructor training there with them also. So that is another look that we could always do. We talked about doing 1 as working out, because part of it is get the word out, teach the world choice theory, don't turn any opportunity down. We agreed that 3 would be an ideal minimum, because you have your triad for doing role play. I mean, that, you know, and 6 is even better, and a few more, whatever. But one of the things that we talked most about was the factor of trust. We trust our instructors that they know what they're doing, and no matter the number that they're having, that they work with that trust. And then we always have our check and balances, because we have our checkoff sheets that go to the next level. And, you know, and we follow lead management. Should someone show that they need some help, we would go back and work with that person. So again, it's the word trust and teaching choice theory to as many people as we can appropriately.
Yes.
Thank you. And finally,
Thank you.
group number 1.
Not sure who's speaking for us. Marty, go ahead.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, we had, I think none of us were open to teaching just one person. I think that the situation you're in, Kim, would be probably the only time that I would probably ask for an exception in that kind of a situation. But basically, we were thinking 3 to 4 people would be the minimum number for us, unless you were teaching online. And if you ended up with only maybe 2 people, then that might be the exception. But basically, we were saying that 3 to 4 people. And anybody else, Christina, or anybody else want to join in, Sue, or whatever?
And we did say that less than that to ask permission, like if it was,
Yes.
Okay.
Telemarcha, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that one?
No, because there is a process for asking for permission, and I guess
Right.
I think the other thing is we wouldn't want one person to go all the way through as a one.
Oh yeah, that's
Oh,
right.
no.
Right.
So it, that's very important, and because they've got to have 2 instructions, they've got to have, I would say, minimum. Part of the competency is demonstrating your competencies with different peers or different, people who are learning. That's part of competency, because then you're having to bend and shift and use it in different situations, and also internalize it in different situations.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you. Oh, Liz, did you have something to add?
Yes, I just wanted to ask, since we're talking about the minimum number, is there a guideline for the maximum number?
16.
Yeah, the guideline for maximum is 16. It's always been 16. We weren't looking to shift that. It could be 20 if you have a practicum supervisor with you. But that's the upper limit.
So that remains.
That remains. It was interesting. We had a man from Singapore. I don't know if you know Stephen.
Yes.
I don't remember his last name, but he adds quite a dimension to our conversation, because Stephen was talking about competency-based training, and he was talking about the level of learning, and it fits in with our 4th conversation. I said we did 3 things this morning, but I lied. We did 4. So I won't tell you what the 4th thing is, but it'll come in with minimum numbers too, because if you have a big group, say 200 people, and all you're doing is lecturing to 200 people, then you would call that's informational. And if you want to do understanding, and you wanted to check for understanding, like in a competency-based kind of environment, you'd have to have less people. And then if you wanted to go to experiential, where people are actually implementing the information, like in role playing, you'd want to have even less people. So I think that the 16 number, nobody was actually questioning that. 16 seemed to be the right number, and 20 if you have a practicum supervisor to help out. So we don't even have that one on the list.
When I did my basic week training way back in the 1990s, we were a group of 60 Americans plus a few foreigners like me. And when the trainer had given the information, the practicum supervisors, including Carleen Glasser herself, she was my supervisor, we broke up into groups of 12 for role plays and group work and so on. And then we came back again as a group of 60, and then we broke into groups. So that was really, quite something. I never forget my basic week training, because it was done in
Liz,
America.
Are you saying 16 people or 60 people?
60. We were 60 in Cincinnati, Ohio. Yes.
And that model that Bob used is the original model that Glasser used. In the very first intensive week he ever taught, there was 60 of us in the room, and we broke out into small groups of 12.
Yes.
And he had what we call the LA staff that then took over. Each one had a separate group. So
that
was
I say
original.
that, when you set a maximum number, would you allow for variations that would, you know, what shall I say, fulfill some of the requirements of training, which includes information, experiential, group work, and so on. Yeah. So that with different modalities.
Well, I think that there have been, I taught a CERT week where we had so many people, we had all these teachers that I ended up with like 16 in the small group. So I think that what we're talking about is not so much you can offer a basic training and have 60 people there, but the group still should be small and should not go over, I would say, that 16 number.
Yeah. Agree.
Wouldn't that be a good problem to have?
Yeah, these days, yes.
Just a point, there have been examples that I've been involved in when I was working in education in particular, where a basic week was delivered, that the first day was a general introduction, and often for a whole staff. I can remember working with a large number of people. But day 2, 3, and 4 were then focused on the group of people who wanted to continue, because I remember some of the feedback in trying to plan this sort of stuff was leaders were wanting their staff to be exposed to the same content, but we were saying, well, you can't force it. And so the compromise was a common day for everyone, traditionally day 1. I just want to throw that out there too, because there are always those examples where if we want to teach it to people, we've got to have some flexibility built into whatever the final set of guidelines become.
Gary, that is our 4th question for today. So we're going to actually talk about that particular model to see what people think. But go ahead, Sharon.
I was just going to say our PPM allows for that right now.
Right. And that's the 4th thing we're going to talk about. But before we get to that one, the next question is about practicums, basic and advanced practicums. And the current policy and procedure manual, I think it's always been this way ever since I was a practicum supervisor anyway. The total number of hours for practicum is listed as 30. Now, of course, when we do competence, it won't be, the hours will be irrelevant. But for this interim policy, the current policy says 30 hours for practicum. A minimum of 12 of those hours need to be face-to-face. Now, what I can tell you is that we have some people, at least in this morning, we heard from Canada and we heard from Singapore. And those 2 individuals said that they, in Canada at least, they do a minimum of 30 face-to-face. And in Singapore, Claire said that she has done 40 face-to-face, and then Canada says, well, we sometimes go to 42, 40 also, not 42 as in the number 2, but there was that idea. And then I'm sure, I don't know who they are, but I'm fairly certain that we have practicum supervisors in the US who do 12 hours like the policy manual says. I have always done 18 hours face-to-face. And I know a lot of people who do 18. The people I've trained, I always say, don't do 12. It's not enough. And I ask them to do 13, but we're not doing 30. And so we're looking for what you think the minimum number of face-to-face hours should be during practicum. Minimum number, keeping in mind that you can always do more if that's something that you think is necessary, if that's something that you want to do, but we're looking for a minimum number. So we throw out there 12, 18, and 24 is what the kind of the numbers we threw out. But of course, you could say 30 if that's what you think. But we want to get some consensus about this, or at least an understanding of why you think it should, at minimum, it should be as whatever amount you think the minimum should be.
You also left out one component of that. Those 30 hours was to be completed within 6 months.
Well, they don't have to be completed within 6 months. According to the current policy manual, it says that there needs to be 6 months between the basic and the advanced training.
Right. And so, and within that 6 months, you do the 30, you do the 30 hours is what I was trying to say.
Right. And it can be longer than 6 months. But I
Yeah.
can also tell you just that we may have another question about this down the list. But I once had a basic instructor try to hire me to do a 18-hour face-to-face practicum in 3 consecutive days. And I said I wouldn't do that. But by technically, there's nothing in the policy and procedure manual that says you can't. But I know the reason that we said 6 months, because somebody rewrote that policy and procedure manual and it said 6 months from basic to advanced. It never said prior to that edit, it used to say a 6-month minimum practicum. So from the beginning to the end of the practicum was 6 months. But now the way the policy reads, it's 6 months from basic to advanced. So you could do the practicum in 3 days, which kind of, I think, goes around the purpose of practicum, which is to help people integrate the ideas and the information and use it in their lives. You can't just teach
Develop-
somebody 3 days.
And develop.
That's why we're
Yeah.
having this discussion. So-
Right, and develop the
Yeah.
skills, right, absolutely, Marty.
Yeah.
So do you understand the task? Okay, I'm
Yeah,
gonna send you back
yeah.
into rooms. You're gonna be with different people this time and discussing the minimum number of hours face-to-face. Could be on Zoom, could be in person, but face-to-face in real time with the practicum supervisor. Okay, here you go. Oh, I'm gonna give you 10 minutes.
We have the next question. So Kim, you want to restate what we're answering and then we'll go around.
Yeah, we're trying to determine what the minimum number of face-to-face contact hours would be for practicum, basic and advanced. Currently, it's set at 12, and we want to know if we want to keep it there or do we want to extend that? So,
Okay, so since everybody keeps getting mixed up, we can just go ahead and start with group 1, and it's likely to be a different one than it was before. So let's do group 1, Kim.
okay, Judith, Sharon, and Sue Tomaszewski.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sue.
Well, 2 out of 3 were about the full 30 hours should be face-to-face. And one of us was okay with 18 to 20 being face-to-face, and the rest of the work could be done online or what have you. So, I mean, could I live with 30 hours face-to-face? Yes. The people who I'm working with never wanted, they only wanted face-to-face. So if a group wants only face-to-face, I would say that the 30 hours is fine face-to-face. But if I don't want to restrict it, if there are people who are able to complete the practicum in 18 hours face-to-face, and then the other hours are done in another way, I think is fine. But that's me, and I'm not an instructor. So Judith and Sharon as instructors are saying they want to see more work and they'd want to see the full 30 hours as face-to-face. So,
okay.
But you're a practicum supervisor, Sue, and we're talking about practicums.
But again, as a practicum supervisor, when I'm sending people along to an intensive training, am I sending them along? I mean, my understanding is I've sent them along and they've been in okay shape. But on the other hand, my people have never met. Like they've always done it because they didn't want the homework that would be necessary to complete the other. That's how they saw the additional hours as homework.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go to group number 2.
That would be John, Caligamurti, and Michelle. Oh, the Aussies.
Yes. No, did you want to do, I mean, I'll just speak for the group a little bit, but Calica might have a bit more to add. I think Calica and I were looking at 15 hours as the minimum face-to-face, but that also involves at least 15 hours of work away from it in terms of written components and things like that. So it's additional work.
beyond the face-to-face meetings. That's just been our experience that, we can't see anyone doing successful practicum in under 15 hours, whether it's 18 or not. But I've found that that's the kind of time that I find people have got at least a reasonable chance of integrating. Did you have anything to add, Kalika?
No, we were quite specific in that we teach to competency. So even though there's an hour amount, we have an expectation about competency. So we have different ways of doing that, but we have for the training I do, they've got to write a book review. They've got to write to one personal, one professional, if they don't work, to personal, to demonstrate how they've integrated. And that 15 hours is face-to-face and role play. And there might be other things where we would ask. So, and because I also run online training, there's in between each session of the online training, there's homework where they, by practicum, they might choose, or we ask them to choose a specific thing to focus on. Maybe it's a lead management interview using those skills in their professional life or personal life. And then part of that is they report back in the training how they've gone with that and self-evaluate.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Group number 3.
Liz, Marty, and Sue Berry.
Yes, I think with Marty and Sue Berry, we agreed that the minimum number of practicum face-to-face hours should be 15, but we emphasize that it was the responsibility of the practicum supervisor to assess the competency and the readiness of each candidate for the next level of training, whether it be advanced week or certificate training, because we didn't want the instructor to come in for advanced training and having to repeat much of the basic training that was not yet integrated by the candidate.
Okay. All right.
And the last group.
The last group only had 2 people that I can see. Let me just check if I'm just missing it. Yep, I'm just missing it. So the last group was Dr. Zalmo, Gary, and Christine.
Christine.
Muted, Christine.
I do that and then I forget. Sorry. We said 12 hours because that was wholly dependent on how many people. If there was only 3 people, the 12 hours would be enough. But if there was, more people, then we thought 18 hours as a minimum. We thought that sort of allowed for the fact that you at least doubled the hours because people would do work in between, like the journaling and, as Kalika said, practicing role plays, reading. Basically the group made it to, and the group, there was some flexibility in that if the group wanted to meet again, well then, there'd be flexibility there.
I'm just writing, these are some notes for myself. I didn't put in the first group who said 30 hours because that's already one of our options. These were different options with some contingencies. So that's why I'm putting them in the chat, just for my memory for when we do the Survey Monkey. I'm not giving more preference to some groups over others. So I think if we have time, we don't have a lot of time and we ran into the end of the day, but I'd like to keep both groups on the same schedule if I could. So the last thing that we talked about, and of course, if you have to go, because we did say this would be 90 minutes, please feel free to go. But the last one was just about what Gary was talking about. We have a provision in the policy and procedure manual to allow for the first day of a 4-day training to be open to the public. which could mean that you're putting on a basic training and you're advertising and people from the community are coming in to hear you. It could technically be a take charge of your life training on day one, and then you do 3 more days to make up a basic training. It was originally proposed because people were having Glasser come in and speak on the first day. And then the whole organization or the whole entire school got to hear the first day of the training, and then you worked with the 16 people that were going to go on for the basic training, or more if you had more instructors. Sometimes you do a 1 day open day, and then you get 4 or 5 instructors to go on with 16 people each. I mean, those were the good old days when that was happening here. So we're basically trying to get your thoughts on whether it's a good idea to continue to have this model, since Glasser is no longer with us and he's not doing the first day. Does it make sense for us to have this for an open first day and then 3 more days of training? And it made a difference in group 1, whether or not, I'm saying it as if it has been decided that you have to be doing a 4-day training if you have the first day open. But that was one of the stipulations that group 1 made. They don't want to see 1 day open and then only 2 more days for a basic training. So I just am mentioning that. You may think something different, but that's what they were talking about. So really, whether we do 2 or 3 days or 3 or 4 days at this point, we have the same number of hours for a 3-day and a 4-day training. It's not different hours anymore. So or at least that's what people voted on. So the hours will be the same, but it means that a third of the training will be all together with a big amount of people rather than a quarter of the training. And that seemed to make a difference to the first day's group, but you guys can figure that out. And we only gave people 5 minutes because we were at the end of the day. Do you think you can discuss that in 5 minutes?
Yeah. With good point. Yeah.
I have a quick question. Are you saying that if you teach a 4-day week and a 3-day week, the hours are the same?
Yes.
I can't see. Go ahead.
They changed the hours to 24, Marty. It's not 27 anymore. So you're either doing 4 6-hour days or 3 8-hour days.
Okay.
At least that's the recommendation. I don't know. It's like you say, can we police it? No, but that's the recommendation. So here we go. So
I have to say that selfishly, I really enjoy so much these opportunities to be together with everyone.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is nothing as heartwarming, even though we're working, just
Quality world pictures.
It is. It
that's what we got in front of us.
That's right. Okay, but let's get to work.
That's it.
So Kim, what are we answering?
The question is, should we keep the model of allowing the first day of a basic training to be open to the public or not?
Okay, start with group 1.
That's me. So we said basically yes, because we thought it was an effective way to get information out. And the fact that we have take charge of your life now was a good thing. That's something you could deliver on day 1. And then the people who stayed for the other 3 days, then they would have basic information, and then it just would be fleshed out and time to practice role plays and things like that the other 3 days.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to group 2.
I was with Sue. No, sorry. Who was I with? Judith and Michelle. Yes. And I just shared the model that I have been doing on a regular basis, because I teach a master's degree course with the University of Swinburne, Melbourne, in Singapore. And they have a core module on reality therapy. So we have a captive audience of a class that will have to attend this core module. And the class is about 30 to 40. But after the first day, which is really the basic concepts of take charge of your life and the basic concepts of choice theory, we offer the students the option to continue the other hours to add on for the basic week certificate. And out of the 30 to 40 students, we have about 10 who will sign up and pay additional fees to have the extra hours. But the extra hours will not come as day 2 or day 3. It may come a week or 2 weeks later, but they will be continuing with me as the instructor to finish the hours. And that becomes like kind of regular, because every cohort that I have taught, many have continued with the basic week and continued with practicum and advanced and certificate training.
If I could just interject also, that was an arrangement that Sister Liz had special permission to do. And we often do permission for college professors who, I remember one time I taught a college course in reality therapy, and everybody got the basic training. It was a 40-hour course. At the end of the training, they were allowed to say, we want this course to count towards certification. They paid their $100 and the Institute got their fee. And, you know, from a course of maybe 20, 25 people, there might have been 8 people who decided to have that count, and they paid their $100. That's another model. It's not in the policy and procedure manual because it's considered an exception, but that has been granted several times to different professors who teach a reality therapy class, not a theories class where reality therapy is just a little piece of it, but an entire, at least 27, what was 27 hours then, it would be 24 hours now. So that's another one. If you know any college professors that are instructors that are teaching it in college, we've allowed for that.
I don't know if I see your hand.
So in our group, because I was in that group, and when Liz was talking about that process where there's the class and then they could finish up, I'm okay with that. But previously I was like, no, you don't do open event and then really right after that. So just what she was talking about here, I think we all agreed to, but the way I understood it as the question came, that was not a consensus agreement.
Thank you. All right, let's go to group number 2.
That was
That
2.
was 2.
So
Oh, so
Halika Marty and Sue Tomaszewski.
Okay, thank you.
So we can't see how you can teach in 3 days, and we can't see how you could have an information day and then achieve everything in the other 2 days. So that was one thing. In the 4 days, yep, we don't have any problem with the first day being information, especially because if you ran it as a take charge of your life, we could see the expediency of that. But we also recognize that it's up to faculty. If they don't want to do that, they don't have to. So, you know, we're not going to stop anyone doing that, but if we don't want to do it, we won't do it.
But that it would be okay to do it if the remaining days, there's got to be at least 3 days. So it's a total of 4 days.
4 days.
Right.
Not 3.
Yeah, we thought that too when we talked about it earlier.
Right.
Okay, and our final group?
Gary, John, and Sue.
Yeah, we thought day 1 open is a good idea. If there's people who come into that who are not involved with that organisation but want to come for the day, then some sort of extra fee per individual. Otherwise, if it's just a whole staff, as an instructor, whatever's being paid to run the basic or advanced or whatever it is, or basic week is paid for. And therefore extras coming on day 1 are already covered in that fee. Doesn't matter if you've got 30 or 40 or 50. And the other thing we sort of agreed on was if you're doing it over 3 days, there's no way we thought you could have a big group for 8 hours. And so what you'd have to do is say, you know, a 3-hour segment is a general introduction to choice theory, or 4 hours or 5 hours, but certainly not 8 hours. It's too long. So that you would then close down for the last part of that first of 3 days, over 8 hours, working with the people who are actually going to do the rest of the basic week.
Okay,
That wraps us up.
that's it.
I have a question about that. It doesn't seem to take under consideration whether we're talking about an open training or a closed training. I would never teach an open training that's where I would use that idea, because Glasser isn't coming to speak. and so we're talking about an open training where you get people who may not even be interested in pursuing further, but would come for that first day. So I think that, does that make a difference? If I'm teaching in an agency, then that's a different story, because that would be a closed week and everybody there would have an interest in what I'm doing and what's going on. So
Right. So the thought was just to say this, that if you advertised for a Take Charge of Your Life, let's say, and you did the Take Charge of Your Life as day one, which in essence is choice theory and a little bit of reality therapy, there's no role play in that. And then that would be the first day. And you would say to the people that were there, there is an additional 3 days of training if you want to stay. If you don't, that's fine. You could even put that in your advertising. There's a basic training. You can make the decision at the end of the first day. That would be the way I think an open event like that would happen. But that's just a thought. I'll put it down as 2 separate questions when I do the Survey Monkeys. So people know they'll be talking about closed versus open training, and they may feel differently about if it's closed.
okay.
So I'll assess both of those. All right, and Calica said, thanks, everyone. Everyone, time for me to have breakfast. I think
And
she
put a
already
chain
left.
on your phone. Put a chain on your phone.
Yeah, I need a magnet or something. So thank you all for being here. This, as I echo what Pat has to say, it's just such a good opportunity to see faculty working together to make some changes that are going to really matter and that they care, and we're doing it in such a collegial way and not an argumentative kind of way. It's collaborative and it feels really good, and I thank you all for that. It means a lot.
It's pretty good.
Thanks,
leadership,
everyone.
Kim. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.